What's up, everybody? How's it going? This is the Tuesday Night Wrestling Report edition of the Rcwr Show, coming at you live right now on August 21st, 2012. What's up, everybody? You know who this is. It's the one and only, the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders. Thank those of you that's checking out this episode right now live on blogtalkradio.com and over at our sister website at infinityoneproductions.com. Also live right now, heard on Stitcher. If you want to interact with us, you know what you got to do. Just feel free to go on ahead, kick back, join us in our chat room that's up right now on Blog Talk Radio. You can also interact with us during this episode as we're on Twitter. That's right. We interact with you all during each and every single episode. Hit us up on Twitter at InfinityOneProd. Of course, you can always call into the show, 646-478-3525. Once again, that's 646-478-3525. Just in case you want to get that head start right now, as of course we'll be opening up the phone lines in the later part of the show when we get you all's reactions. What's up? Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend, especially considering we just came off of a pretty impressive WWE Summerslam pay-per-view. Despite the crowd kind of being not really into it, a little bit of a missed opportunities from the crowd right there. We'll definitely be getting into that in just a little bit, folks. Rest assured on that. Hope everybody has had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you guys were able to, on top of enjoy the SummerSlam pay-per-view that we had saw, you were also able to go out and enjoy some of this good weather we've been having as of late. As we all know, come next month, or probably actually right about now, we got the little kids getting ready to go back to school, so things are about to start getting a little bit free for some of you parents out there. All right, so let's go ahead now, and before we go right into tonight's show, we definitely want to just take this time out to thank those of you that had took the opportunity to check out our weekend coverage of the 25th anniversary of SummerSlam. As on Saturday, we had the RCWR Call That Match special where I had offered match predictions for the SummerSlam pay-per-view, and for also checking out the RCWR post-show as we were covering the whole fallout from SummerSlam, getting your reactions. Really, we came off of a very strong weekend. You all definitely showed your love and support checking out those two episodes over the weekend. For that, we thank you, the listeners. We also thank those of you that have subscribed to us over the weekend via YouTube. As we saw, we had picked up some new YouTube subscribers. So, mad shout out to those of you that just subscribed. Hopefully you enjoy the show, and definitely do stay in touch. We do love hearing from fans. We love that fan reactions, interactions. So, of course, for those of you that did miss SummerSlam, you missed a lot. Highly recommend that you check out the RCWR post-show when you get a free moment, as we go more in-depth about what all had happened with each match, as I was joined by the lovely co-producer Tammy, who, when needed, is always willing to step up to the plate and assist in co-hosting. Lovely co-producer Tammy, thank you so much for the assist over the weekend. But in a nutshell, with regards to SummerSlam, we see a new champion crowned as Antonio Cesaro defeated Santino Marella to become the new United States champion. We also saw Sheamus retain his World Heavyweight Championship in a bit of controversy. We also saw R-Truth, Kofi Kingston retain their tag titles. Miz retained. CM Punk retained in a triple threat match. But, of course, the main attraction of SummerSlam was a shock to many wrestling fans in the community, even for the smart marks out there, as Brock Lesnar defeated the Game Triple H in front of a lackluster Los Angeles crowd that came off to be a bit sleepy for the majority of the pay-per-view, as we had to watch Triple H, poor Triple H, he had to stand in the ring for just a little bit past overtime, really trying to sell, man, I couldn't beat Brock Lesnar. I can't believe it. Oh, man, I let so many people down. I let myself down. Weird mixed reactions that we saw from that crowd as the crowd was chanting, "You tapped out." And I knew just from watching Triple H in the ring that was not what he was trying to sell to everybody. And Triple H, he just literally had to kind of stand there. You know what? It was one of those type of moments for that pay-per-view, because I actually ended up watching the replay after we had got done doing the post-show on Sunday night. And it was one of those things that kind of jumped out at me that I kind of missed the first time, but I definitely saw it the second time around. If it wasn't for the Titantron and Triple H's face being shown and you're reading his mouth saying, "I'm sorry," you know, I don't think the crowd would have been able to get it registered that Triple H was looking for sympathy. So, you know, I was just a little bit perplexed when I saw all that transpire in the ring as the game. He really had to sell that injury, sell that defeat, and already it had just spread it like wildfire that, oh, could this possibly be the end of Triple H? Is Triple H possibly done with the WWE? I mean, we saw all kinds of storylines that had came out that said, oh, Triple H, is he finally going to retire? Oh, Triple H, is this truly the end of the road? There were so many storylines that were out there. It was freaking ridiculous. And I'm sitting up and I'm saying to myself, because I'm actually a hardcore Triple H fan. I mean, when it came to that whole Attitude Era, there were 3 guys that were my favorites that I loved checking out each and every single week, and it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, The Undertaker. Those were my guys as far as the Attitude Era, and there was just something about those 3 guys that even to this very day, I love those guys. So you can just imagine what had happened when Stone Cold had left the WWE, as that was the first guy I used to always be rooting on. Then my attention turned to Triple H, and, you know, despite being a heel, babyface, slapstick comedy Triple H, whatever you want to call it, that Triple H has been doing all these years, different variations of Triple H, one thing has always remained for certain, I've always supported Triple H. So I'm saying this for a reason. When I saw Triple H have to oversell to the crowd, and then we saw just a massive flood of reports coming out that Triple H has finally seen his last days, I'm saying to myself, obviously these guys forgot about Triple H's current contract. And we had reported his contract a couple of months back on the Rcwr Show. It was one of those moments where I wish we could have sat up and we could have pulled a archive footage and played a little snippet for you guys, but as soon as I just saw all the articles that were floating around online, I was just on the spot. I said, wait a minute. They obviously don't know his contract. Now watch, after I say this, we'll probably hear reports come out, oh, well, Triple H isn't exactly done because blah, 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 blah. Just remember, you heard it here first. Now, for those of you that might have missed it the first time around, we got you covered. Now, this is just going off the top of my memory. Now, if you want to ask me, out of 100% accuracy, how much of it I have remembered on point, I would have to say probably I would lean definitely at a 99%. There's that 1% I'm not really too sure about. But from what I recall, Triple H signed a contract for 6 years with World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, there's a few perks that goes into that contract. Of course, he gets to work a select number of dates as far as appearances go, and then as far as wrestling goes, there is a unspecified amount that he is able to do, so as long as him and WWE have worked out the agreement. And then after that initial set of matches that Triple H does, then they'll kind of have to renegotiate how many more appearances if they could get more out of him. That goes for his appearances. That goes for wrestling. He has access to the corporate jet. Basically, Triple H is locked in this contract until, I believe, the age of, let me see, I believe until the age of 47, because if I'm not mistaken, Triple H is, I think he's, 41 years old right now? No, 43 years old. 43 years old. So he's locked until, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. Yeah, he's locked until 48, 49 years old. So Triple H isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And then the other thing that had jumped out at me when everybody was just talking about how, Triple H has seen his ultimate destruction. There's no way Triple H is going to be able to come back from this. I'm sitting up and I'm saying to myself, wait a minute now, and I just had another brainstorm. I said, wait a minute. We've seen this before happen with Triple H. And the guy that jumped out in my mind was Sheamus. Come on now, how quickly some of us have forgotten when Sheamus first came on to the WWE, he was a mega badass heel. And I mean, he was just destroying the competition left and right, and Triple H was one of his victims. I mean, he pretty much dogged the hell out of Triple H the very first time that they had encountered one another, and way back then the talk was, Triple H, as he finally met his match, is it a case where he's no longer the King of Kings? Is Sheamus the new King of Kings? Well, eventually we would see Triple H come back, get a rematch against Sheamus, and he owned him. So I'm seeing all these developments happen, and I'm saying to myself, okay, we definitely have not seen the last of Triple H. This is obviously a storyline that is leaving the door wide open for Triple H to revisit this angle with Brock Lesnar, and it just blended in so perfectly to Monday Night's Raw that we saw just several hours ago, as we would see Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar, they come out and they pretty much boost in the fact that they did what they said they were going to do, that they had took out Triple H, that they made Triple H tap out. And they're just basking in the glory of what all they did, as Brock Lesnar is proclaimed the new King of Kings of professional wrestling. Now, we would later find out in a tout video shared by WWE that Brock Lesnar shockingly had quit the WWE, saying that he has done everything he has set out to do in the WWE, that there is nobody else to beat. And, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, okay, definitely there's going to be a rematch here with Triple H, as we would see later on in the night. We would see Shawn Michaels offer his thoughts on what all had happened with his best friend Hunter suffering a defeat from Brock Lesnar. And Shawn Michaels would actually reveal that he knew deep down inside that Hunter was not going to be able to get the job done. But when you've been friends with somebody for so long, it's really hard to look them in the eyes and let them know that you just don't feel that they're going to be able to pull in that victory. And Shawn Michaels, as much as he wanted to tell Triple H the truth, he had to tell Hunter what Hunter wanted to hear. He had to feed Triple H's ego, and that Triple H would have to, unfortunately, find out for himself that he's nothing more than a mere mortal, that he would have to face his own mortality when he dealt with Brock Lesnar. And he would talk about that pain that Triple H is probably feeling at home as he's nursing his injuries. As last we checked, supposedly Triple H's arm was, in fact, broken once again by Brock Lesnar, who kept applying that Kamari hold throughout their match at SummerSlam on Sunday. So Shawn Michaels, very heartfelt words right there, as he would sit up and say to Triple H he has nothing to be ashamed about. He is and will always be one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He will always be a warrior. Really nice sale right here. Wasn't quite sure what was going on with the crowd, though. I had never seen a crowd so quiet before in my life. I was like, when it first came on, folks, I was kind of looking at this, and I know there were a lot of you that were kind of feeling the same way because we were interacting with you all as Raw had aired throughout the night, and the whole general feeling was, what's up with the crowd? They act like somebody died. What the hell? It was definitely a very eerie moment, definitely the wrong type of crowd to be in front of, but you know what? I would rather have a crowd be quiet, hearing very important words coming from Shawn Michaels, who is basically doing his part to help continue the storyline between Triple H and Lesnar, than to have Shawn Michaels be overthrown by fans chanting silly stuff. So might have been a little dead quiet there, but hey, it's better than hearing a bunch of silly crap. And really, I was looking at this moment right here, and I was just thinking back and going back to what had happened between Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, as they had came out, and I'm saying to myself, man, WWE missed a really good opportunity right here. And I was just saying to myself, how badass would it have been if we would have seen Stephanie McMahon come out to the ring, and she basically gets in the face of Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, and she says to them, look, you may have gotten a victory over Triple H, but you haven't hurt his spirit. You haven't destroyed it. He's going to come back. He's going to come back stronger than before. And when he does, I'm going to be right there with him, rooting him on, as he will take you down. You know, that really would have been kind of a nice little exchange of words between the three of them, as another cool moment that should have occurred involving Stephanie could have seen the heated words get so intense between Paul Heyman and Stephanie McMahon that Stephanie would just say something just really, really nerve-wrenching to make Brock Lesnar just grab her. You know, he could just grab her by the back of the head, and he's getting ready to do something foul to her. Maybe we could have seen Brock Lesnar pick her up, put her over his shoulders, and is thinking about doing that F5 when we just could have seen a sea full of WWE talent come to the aid of Stephanie. I mean, hell, leading the pack, it could have been John Cena, and that would have been totally fine, since John Cena did lock it up with Brock Lesnar at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. And we could have seen Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, they could have just hauled ass, left out of the arena through the crowd, and that could have pretty much been the end of that right there. Really thought that should have been the way that they play it out, rather than just have them leave the ring and then later on we hear the whole thing about Tout. And the funny thing about that Brock Lesnar piece on Tout, it took a minute for it to catch on, Raw that is, because I know initially when word first broke out that Brock Lesnar had quit WWE via Tout, if I'm not mistaken, it took WWE at least 40 to 45 minutes to report it. So I'm kind of saying to myself, man, that's a little bit of a gap right there, especially since you always have Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler. They're always sitting at ringside talking about how active they are during all the commercial breaks, and they're watching everything that people are saying during the matches on Twitter, Facebook, Tout. So I just kind of thought that was a little bit of too long of a delay, as many people had already found out what the newest development was with the Lesnar storyline. But in either case, it should be very interesting to see what's going to be happening within weeks to come, as it was reported that Paul Heyman, his original appearances were to have concluded at the SummerSlam pay-per-view, but now it's being said that he has signed some type of an extension. So it's safe to say that we're going to definitely see him continue to push the storylines for the Triple H Brock Lesnar angle, which definitely brings us to another interesting question right now, which is what exactly is going to happen between Triple H and Brock Lesnar as far as when's the next time that these two guys are going to be locking it up. Now, we had briefly talked about it on the RCWR post show, and one thing that's being said is expect Brock Lesnar to perhaps come back at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. You know, Survivor Series, Hell in a Cell, it really doesn't make a difference to me as long as the gap isn't that long. I mean, at this point, we can either get Brock Lesnar back in October or we can get him back in November. But the one thing that needs to be consistent, we need to definitely continue to see Paul Heyman push the envelope, and hopefully within the weeks to come, we'll maybe see Paul Heyman share another moment with Vince McMahon. I would love to see the two of these guys in the ring just like old times, and Vince McMahon can sit up and say, look, you know, I've been talking to my son-in-law, and, you know, he definitely wants another shot at Brock Lesnar. I don't know, maybe it would be nice to kind of see it done if handled just right. Other key highlights that we had saw on Raw this past Monday night, we had saw Ryback, who is in action, as it looks like they went back to feeding Ryback created wrestlers, as he made quick work out of them despite interference from Jinder Mahal. Really nice to see that they haven't quite forgotten about this rivalry between these two guys. Hopefully, eventually, they will wrap this up at a pay-per-view. I must admit, a couple of months back, I really wasn't liking Jinder Mahal like that, but I don't know, man. The guy, he really hasn't been saying too much, but there's just something about the guy I like, and it's definitely making me want to see him, just in a nutshell, get his ass beat. I'm looking forward to it. So Ryback, though, he picked up the win on two created wrestlers, as I like to call them. We also saw a Divas Battle Royal that went into effect, as a new number one contender had needed to be determined to face Layla somewhere down the road for a shot at her Divas Championship. Well, that person would be no other to win that than Caitlyn. So not really that invested in this right now, especially with Caitlyn. I know I've been watching Raw and SmackDown religiously, especially SmackDown within recent weeks, and I really haven't seen that much of Caitlyn, enough for me to say, oh, okay, I definitely wouldn't mind seeing her get a shot at Layla. I mean, it seems like the only time we do see Caitlyn pop up is when she's in some type of a backstage segment and she's kind of rubbing heads with AJ. That's pretty much it, though. We also saw Sin Cara team up with Kofi Kingston and R-Truth to defeat the Primetime Players with Cody Rhodes. I mean, really, do we need to continue to bury the Primetime Players? We already just saw these guys get their asses handed to them at the SummerSlam pay-per-view. Now we come out less than 24 hours later, and we see them get beat again by Truth and Kingston. And this is really a case right now where I'm sitting up and I'm saying to myself, okay, what? Kurt Hawkins, Zack Ryder, they were not available. The Usos are always on standby. what exactly is going on here? Primo, Epico, they're on standby as well. My whole thing is, and I know we don't have that many tag teams, but really, do we have to keep seeing the primetime players continue to get buried week after week after week? Hopefully, this will not turn into a scenario where we'll see the primetime players take on R-Truth and Kingston at Night of Champions for the tag belts, because otherwise it's not really going to be a good sell to that person that's possibly thinking about buying the pay-per-view, because they're automatically going to sit up and say to themselves leading up into that Night of Champions pay-per-view, oh, what's the point of ordering this when this is a no-brainer? Truth and Kingston are probably going to retain. So unless they can finally start turning the tides and have the primetime players actually look strong and pose a threat like they did a few weeks back to possibly becoming new tag champions, I really don't see the point in them continuing to work this program with these guys. Of course, we also saw Alberto Del Rio in action, as initially he had came out demanding a rematch against the World Heavyweight Champion Sheamus, as a little bit of shenanigans had went into play during their match at Summerslam, as we had saw Ricardo Rodriguez take off his shoe while distracting the referee and throwing it to Del Rio so he could glock Sheamus over the head with it. Well, Ricardo, he overthrew, and it actually went in Sheamus' hand, and Sheamus just cold glocked him over the head, and he was able to retain his championship that way. So pretty much Alberto Del Rio was beaten at his own game. So he's crying like a little baby about this, and he wanted his rematch. Wrong show, as he's supposed to be expressing all of these views to Booker T. Well, AJ Lee would come out, and she would tell Del Rio that she doesn't have the power to give him a match against Sheamus for the title, but that she could put him in a match that if he were to win, surely the SmackDown General Manager, Booker T, would take note. And the man that Alberto Del Rio had ended up facing was none other than the Viper, Randy Orton. And Sheamus would play a very critical role in this match, as we would see Sheamus come down at ringside, and he's joining Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, giving his thoughts on what all had happened between his match with Del Rio at SummerSlam. And we would see Sheamus come in to take advantage of Del Rio's personal ring announcer while cowering over him from ringside. And as all this is going on, we pretty much saw Orton's back turned against Del Rio, who looked like he was about to get set up for a backstabber. But then we would see Sheamus do what he does best, and he distracted Alberto Del Rio, causing Randy Orton to deliver a devastating RKO to pick up the victory. So now it looks like we're going to have a pretty intense episode of SmackDown come this Friday night, as Booker T had recently revealed that he's definitely going to be addressing Alberto Del Rio and his rematch demands. So that should be a pretty strong episode right there. One of the other key highlights that we had saw on Raw this past Monday night, we had saw the continued push of Damian Sandow, who defeated Brodus Clay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong here, this should make Brodus Clay loss number 2, 3, 4. So nice to finally see some tinks coming in there in that armor right there. Love the way WWE is continuing to push Damian Sandow. What I tell you, folks, I told you this guy was going to become a Raw exclusive. It's looking like it more and more. I definitely do not recall him being on SmackDown, at least within the past 2 weeks. Let's see if that trend is going to continue. We also saw the return of David Otunga, who unfortunately had to face, well, the Big Show, or as I like to say, oh no, as Big Show was able to defeat David Otunga. Really felt bad for Otunga right here. Here was another case where Otunga should have been facing somebody else completely different. Otunga should have been facing maybe Yoshitatsu. Hell, maybe he could have been facing Lord Tensai. I understand they want to try to make Big Show seem kind of relevant, especially since Big Show is hot-headed right now, coming off of that SummerSlam pay-per-view where he felt like he was basically double-teamed by CM Punk and John Cena. But, I just don't know what the heck they got planned for this guy. I don't know why they keep having him go over to younger talent. It's really mind-boggling to me. But, yeah, unfortunately, Big Show defeated David Otunga. We also saw Daniel Bryan and The Miz team up to take on Kane and Zack Ryder, which had ended in a no contest. This definitely was a match that just had me kind of going, what the hell? Because I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. The history with Kane and the history that he has with Zack Ryder, wow, really? We're really going to make this be a tag team? And then, of course, we looked on the other side, and we had The Miz teaming up with Daniel Bryan, who at one point used to be under The Miz, as Miz was his mentor as he was coming up the ranks in NXT. So we're looking at all this. I mean, it's definitely great ingredients here. I definitely, after it was, I was glad that Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler, I was glad that they went into details about everything that has been transpiring between these four guys, respectively, because if they did not acknowledge it, it was definitely going to be one of those WTF moments. So I'm really glad that they took the time out to really do a good job selling to the fans. Wow, how can these two teams work together when there's so much bad blood between them? I love how that had played out. And it looks like Daniel Bryan, Kane, it looks like they're definitely going to be continuing their program. I love how it's being played out right now. Let's see if they can keep that momentum going. And, of course, one of the other main highlights that we saw, and we definitely got to talk about this for just a few minutes, saw Chris Jericho take on Dolph Ziggler. Very high stakes in this match, as the two of these guys initially were having a go at it verbally backstage. We would see AJ Lee show up, and she would say, look, why don't we see the two of you guys in a SummerSlam rematch, but let's do it like this. Dolph Ziggler, if you lose, your Money in the Bank contract goes to Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, if you lose to Dolph Ziggler, then your WWE contract is terminated. Stakes could not be any higher right here. Definitely a great match between these two guys. It wasn't 5-star caliber type of match like what they had did at SummerSlam. It was definitely close to it. I could definitely tell the big difference here, as they're kind of saying to themselves, we're just on television. Let's not go all the way. You could tell they were definitely holding back, but it was still a great matchup between these two guys right here. And when it was all said and done, we would actually see Chris Jericho lose to Dolph Ziggler, as a bitter Chris Jericho afterward would take Ziggler's Money in the Bank briefcase and hit him over the head, go to the body with it before leaving the ring, receiving a nice little ovation from the crowd. He also threw a code breaker in there too, but at the end, he had got a nice little reception from the crowd. I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, man, can they come up with something possibly better? Because that's really not a way I would have had Chris Jericho ride off into the sunset. I mean, couldn't this have been a case where we could have seen Dolph Ziggler just I don't know. It would have been nice to see maybe Chris Jericho not even make it into the match. We see Chris Jericho come down to the ring and Ziggler attacks him from behind, and he's just assaulting him with that Money in the Bank briefcase, just pretty much knocking him out cold, dragging his lifeless body into the ring, picking up a victory that way, keeping his Money in the Bank contract, and that could have been a last image that we could have seen of Chris Jericho, as eventually maybe we could have seen a few months down the road whenever Jericho is done with Fozzy and he comes back into the WWE, he could be seeking a little bit of retribution from Ziggler. That way you kind of have the storyline be open. But in this case, they didn't even go that route. Now, I know some ideas that were floating around out there, and I definitely agree it would have been an awesome thing to do, which is have Dolph Ziggler lose the Money in the Bank briefcase to Chris Jericho, and at that point, Chris Jericho could have just popped up at any time, cash in the briefcase, and become a World Heavyweight Champion. That would have been nice. It would have created some definite buzz. A lot of fans could have taken him winning that Money in the Bank contract as a guaranteed he's definitely going to be coming back into the WWE at some point. And when he does, it's definitely going to be a lot of shock value because you're just never going to know when you can expect it. And I just really felt that there really should have been more time put into this departure of Jericho, as I'm a huge Jericho fan, and for those of you that do not have his DVD, Breaking Down the Walls, Chris Jericho, really, really great DVD story right there. You will definitely not be disappointed. It's 3-disc, great story on there. I'm just thinking back to all the times that Chris Jericho has rolled out of the WWE, and I'm comparing it to what he just did on Monday. And I must say, it was just the weakest departure for Jericho. They really could have just they should have done a better job for this guy. Of course, as we all know, Jericho, he has his band Fozzy. They just put out their new album, Sin and Bones. It came out last Tuesday, and it's been getting a ton of great reviews. You definitely want to tune in for the weekend edition of the Rcwr Show coming at you this Saturday. We're definitely going to be reviewing that album. I'll definitely give you the final verdict on if the album is actually meeting its hype, because right now it is being tagged as the greatest Fozzy album put out to date. So big statements right there. You definitely want to check that weekend edition report of the Rcwr Show, as we'll be talking about that album. But Chris Jericho, he's done. From what we've heard, what we've been actually able to gather, Chris Jericho, he is going to be on tour with Fozzy until March of 2013. Might he possibly be able to show up for WrestleMania? Who knows? Remains to be seen. Of course, one of the main attractions of Raw this past Monday night saw CM Punk, who was given the opportunity to choose his next opponent for the Night of Champions pay-per-view that's going to be coming our way in September, I believe Sunday, September 9th. And CM Punk would reveal that person to be John Cena, but under one stipulation. Towards the end of Raw, we would see the voice of the voiceless get in the ring, and he would actually proceed over to commentator Jerry Lawler and ask him, or demand rather, that he apologizes to CM Punk for saying that he turned his back on the WWE. Shit got real when CM Punk was in the ring on Monday night, folks. As CM Punk, he basically revealed a lot of things that a lot of fans have been saying. He finally broke his silence, as he feels that the main question that fans keep asking him is, why isn't he main eventing Raw? Why isn't he main eventing pay-per-views? And he would be saying all this to John Cena, who eventually came out, and that's what made this battle of words even better, was the fact that he was saying this to John Cena's face. And CM Punk would say, hey, whether I go out first, whether I go out last, it doesn't matter. I'm the WWE Champion. I allow John Cena to go out because I respect him. But CM Punk would sit up and reveal that he's tired of taking a backseat to guys like John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Triple H, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and that he wants the respect that he so rightfully feels that he deserves. Now, we would see CM Punk say to John Cena, hey, willing to give you this title shot at Night of Champions, but under one stipulation. And that stipulation would be revealed to be when CM Punk defeats him. Actually, let's back up a second. CM Punk wanted from John Cena to proclaim him to be the best in the world. That was it. That's all John Cena had to say. He gets his title shot. John Cena, he couldn't do it. And he would reveal his reason why, basically saying that, you know, that's something that the fans will dub on you, and that basically if CM Punk wants to have John Cena's respect as the WWE Champion, then what better way to do that than to go to John Cena's hometown crowd in Boston for that Night of Champions pay-per-view, beat him, as surely not only will CM Punk get that respect he so rightfully deserves from John Cena, but he'll get that respect that he's been feeling is long overdue from the crowd, from all the wrestlers in the back. And John Cena would say, look, I'm not going to say you're the best in the world, but you have what it is you have right now. It's up to you to decide whether or not you want to have me be the one to go head-to-head at this pay-per-view. If you don't choose me, no hard feelings. That's pretty much what John Cena said in a nutshell right here. And I was loving this transition between these two guys. I was loving their exchange of words. Really awesome stuff right here. How do you follow that up? Great, intense promos right here. Well, CM Punk would turn his attention to Jerry Lawler, get back to the business that he had with him originally, which saw him come to the ring, and CM Punk, he basically pulls Jerry Lawler's commentator card, being the voice of WWE, and saying to Jerry Lawler, let all these people know the truth, let them know that he's the best in the world. Well, Jerry Lawler would not say that because he does not feel that's the case, but that he wants to go back to doing his job. He was willing to apologize for what he said to him a couple of weeks back, but he could not say that CM Punk was the best in the world. Jerry Lawler tried to excuse himself, and we would see CM Punk deliver a nice, strong kick to the back of the King's head. And that was pretty much the end of Raw right there, folks. So, shit getting real now. We got CM Punk, who's really starting to come more and more out of his shell. He's really starting to go back to the CM Punk possibly of old, as he had brought up how he tried to be a team player when he had won the championship last year, that he was trying to do whatever he could to be on people's good sides, to basically be a team player. But that basically he's now done being a team player because he continues to be disrespected. So the stage could not be set any higher, folks, as we did not get to see CM Punk accept John Cena's challenge. Maybe we will know next week if Punk will accept Cena's challenge, but the stakes could not be any higher, as this could pretty much be what will really determine CM Punk's legitimacy as a WWE champion, as he will go one-on-one with John Cena. We already know it's going to happen, so let's call it. He's going to go one-on-one with John Cena at Night of Champions, and if CM Punk is able to defeat John Cena in front of a Boston crowd, a great crowd at that, can you just imagine how that pay-per-view is going to be? The reactions from that crowd is definitely going to be more on point than the Los Angeles crowd that we had for SummerSlam. I wish we could have had the Boston crowd in Los Angeles on Sunday. That's how bad that crowd was, really, folks, especially when it came to them dancing to that Kevin Rudolph song. You want to check out the post-show. I had some pretty freaking fun on there when you get a chance. Really nice stuff right there. But, you know, I must say, when I was paying attention to this episode of Raw, it just really kind of came off like one of those type of episodes. I couldn't wait for it to go off, because this was supposed to be an episode where, all right, fallout from a pay-per-view. Yeah, let's see what's going to happen next. And other than Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, Punk, Cena, that was pretty good too. Ziggler, Jericho, other than those three, there really wasn't anything to really be excited about. It just seemed like a filler episode. It just kind of, I don't know, it just seemed kind of weak. I would expect a weak episode like this maybe the week after a pay-per-view, but a Raw episode the night after a pay-per-view, I would definitely expect it to be more stronger, and it just kind of came off as if the writers, unfortunately, didn't have that much material to work with. It just kind of came off to me that maybe the writers were a little bit burned out from all the episodes that they had to do last week leading up into the pay-per-view. They just kind of seemed like they might have been a little bit tapped out a bit. So very curious to see how next week is going to do. And for those of you wondering how this past Monday night's Raw had did in the ratings, you'll definitely be pleased to know that the post-SummerSlam episode had did a 2.84 rating, which isn't so bad. I mean, that's pretty decent when you think about it there. As the final rating, that's just a rough draft right now. It looks like the final rating isn't set to be released for the next little bit. So we'll definitely be staying on top of that and get you as much information as we can available for that. But it looks like we have a retraction to make. Actually, the Raw that I just told you guys was a 2.84 rating. That was actually for last week. Early numbers are coming in for this past Monday night, folks, that is suggesting that it pulled in a 3.1. So as soon as we get a confirmation on that, we'll definitely let you guys know. Of course, as always, when it comes to SmackDown ratings, TNA ratings, Raw ratings, you can always rely on InfinityOneProductions.com. We always pay attention to the show ratings on there, so definitely check it out as it becomes available. You can also check out the Facebook page where we're always posting content on there. Speaking of which, we definitely got some other topics that we got to go into when we get ready to get you guys caught up on the latest on what all has been happening in the wrestling community. As Chris Masters, talk about a bonehead freaking move, man. This guy released this raunchy pic of himself in a uncompromising position that's been creating a lot of buzz. I'm definitely going to let you guys know, if you're not aware of it, what this picture was. And no, nothing of nudity, but it definitely was an eye-turner, so to speak. So I'll definitely let you know about that and get you guys caught up on the rest that's been happening. And we'll also open up the phone lines, get you all's reaction from this past Raw, this past SummerSlam. So hang tight. We're going to be coming right back, folks, in about 2 minutes or less. You're listening to the Tuesday Night Wrestling Report edition of the Rcwr Show on August 21st, 2012. We'll be coming right back, folks. Do hang tight.
Tired of those wrestling websites that give you redirects, spyware, weird pop-ups? How about those misleading headlines? Instead of hitting the keyboard in frustration, why not visit InfinityOneProductions.com? Infinity One is the source for wrestling-related news and so much more without all the hassle. Visit InfinityOneProductions.com. Your keyboard will thank you.
Hey guys, Lee Sanders here with the Rcwr Show, and I'd like to take this time out to tell you about one or two quick apps that I think you should check out when you get a free moment. First app I'd like to recommend to you is the app from Stitcher. Now, Stitcher allows you to be able to play all our episodes of the Rcwr Show and Impact Showdown on your portable devices, such as an Android phone, Kindle Fire, iPad, you name it, it'll be able to play it. So definitely highly recommend that you check that out. It's available for free in the App Store. Stitcher, new and smart way to play radio. Also, another cool app that I'd like to recommend to you all is a new app that came out not too long ago from Apple. That's right, Apple has recently come out with a free podcast app. Now, this app is really cool, folks, because after we are done doing our shows, all you have to do is just subscribe to our episodes. And you can do this by downloading this new free podcast app. All you have to do, visit the App Store on your iPhone or iPad and just search podcast. Once the app is downloaded, you can then type in the name of our shows, the Rcwr Show and Impact Showdown, and you'll be able to subscribe. It's that easy. So you have two cool free apps that you can check out and take all our episodes with you on the go. So get to it already.
All right, and we're back 7 minutes before the midnight hour on August 21st, 2012. This is the Tuesday Night Wrestling Report edition of the Rcwr Show. Black Avenger Lee Sanders here, as always, folks. So in our last segment there, we had ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger where we were talking about this controversial picture that is floating around of one Chris Masters. Now, for those of you that are not hip to who Chris Masters is, Chris Masters was a WWE wrestler that was in the company for a couple of years there, and he had recently got released from them. Well, not recently, but he got released from them a couple of years back, as I believe he kept violating their wellness policy. I'm not really sure. I know initially that he did violate it, and when he came back, the guy was just so freaking small, it was ridiculous. A lot of people, they had started making fun of him, but slowly, surely, he would start getting his bulk back up. And, you know, ever since then, because he was in, I'm trying to think, I believe he was in the WWE until 2011, if I'm not mistaken. From there, he had returned to the independent circuit, and he's pretty much been wrestling off and on throughout there ever since. Now, he made headlines, and you can see his picture on our Facebook page. We refused to put it on the website because we just didn't want to have that be on there, so we just put it on our Facebook page because we try to talk more about whatever is happening in wrestling, music-related news. We try to make the Facebook page try to be the place to go to more, as opposed to the Infinity Productions website. Because I saw this picture and I was like, no, I don't want it on the website. And I told my staff, I said, no, do not even put that picture. I don't even want to read about it on the website. Let's just make it be a Facebook exclusive. So there's this picture of Chris Masters who released this picture of himself holding a plastic toy gun to his head while he has a drink in his hand. And so many people were under the impression that he was suicidal, that he was getting ready to do some very serious harm to himself. There was great concern for him. And later on, he would reveal that, the gun, it was just fake, that it was just supposed to be a joke. And he would go on to sit up and basically bash people for being so uptight. Now, this is what he had to say, quote unquote, and we definitely want to pull this up for you. I apologize to those who took the gun pic serious. Wasn't real. And I am not suicidal at all, but why are we all so uptight nowadays? Just a pic. Well, see, here's the problem that I have with this picture. It's one thing if you would have sat up, you would have released the picture, and you would have said initially as a caption under the pic, hey, folks, don't freak out. It's not real. I'm just having a little fun. That would have been one thing. But Masters didn't even put that out there. So what the hell do you expect to happen if you don't add some type of captioning to your picture, letting everybody know that looks at it that you're just having a little fun? Second of all, your definition of fun with a fake gun pointed to your head and my definition of fun is two completely different stories, obviously. If I feel like pointing a gun at somebody, I'm going to turn on Grand Theft Auto. I'm going to turn on L.A. Noire. I'm going to turn on Gears of War 3. I'm not going to sit up and take a picture of myself. I don't even care if it's a fake gun. I don't care if it's a real gun, but it's unloaded. I'm not going to sit up and post a picture of myself showing those type of disturbing images, put those disturbing thoughts out there. And if we need examples of wrestlers that have done horrific acts, damn, Chris Benoit comes into mind. I mean, that's a real freaking big news flash right there. Of course people are going to freak out at seeing this freaking picture. I must admit, I got to call it how I see it. Chris Masters is doing this and then bashing the fans for being so uptight. I'm sorry, but he's a dumbass. Plain and simple, he's a dumbass. And seeing this type of move, maybe it's a good thing that he's no longer working with the WWE, because I'm quite sure that if this picture would have surfaced and he would have been still with the company, I'm quite sure they probably would have found some type of reason. This would have been their main basis to get rid of him, but they would have tried to add more stuff onto the plate for why they are releasing him. They probably could have went behind budget cuts or something like that, but I'm quite sure he definitely wouldn't have made it into the WWE this long after this pic had came out. So, it's just one of those things where, it's got me thinking now. I never really was much of a Chris Masters fan, although I did think that his little modified version of the Nelson lock, as he was calling it, the Master lock, I did think that was kind of cool, but other than him flexing and all that other good stuff, that was pretty much it. There was really nothing else to him. Almost like David Otunga when you think about it. How cool is that, folks? Maybe that should be a dream match right there. Battle of the masterpieces right there. They both got on the same little red trunks and same little white knee pads, boots, and all that. Maybe they should have a battle of who's going to be the true masterpiece. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing that. I'd probably pay $20, $30, $40 tickets just to see those two guys get it on. Of course, we got to also talk about the latest buzz that's been happening in the wrestling community. And this one I thought was definitely a, God, could we please shut this up already? And we got this silly report that is just floating around saying that Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to come out of retirement to have one more match at WrestleMania 30 in 2014. And this just spread it like wildfire. I guarantee you right now, if you sat up and you typed in Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out of retirement, you're going to see exactly all the headlines that I'm talking about. Very few of these websites, these dirt sheets, very few of them sat up, made the retraction. If anything, they're trying to figure out a way to cover it up to try to make themselves not look like idiots. I don't know who spreaded this rumor, but it was a very bad rumor. As Stone Cold Steve Austin, he had to shoot down these reports, and he said this via Twitter. He said, and I quote, "Don't listen to dirt sheets or Bleacher Report." And he would add that they will say, and if he's wrestling again, that's the bottom line. Actually, correction, Stone Cold Steve Austin will say if and when he's wrestling again, and that's the bottom line. Now, Jim Ross would also shoot down this report, writing on his Twitter, sources/media saying Stone Cold Steve Austin will wrestle at WrestleMania 29 have zero credibility, less than 4. If Austin ever returns, he'll make the call. For the anal retentive, this ain't cryptic. Stone Cold Steve Austin has no plans to have one more match, and if he changes his mind, he decides. Now, it should be noted that when asked if Austin would be wrestling at WrestleMania 30 because he won't be physically or mentally ready by WrestleMania 29, Jim Ross had replied, total BS. Now, let's just get something straight here. And I know the report that they are talking about because I actually read that stupid little Bleacher Report. And, you know, it's one of those type of sites where anybody can get on there and they can post whatever content that they want for free. And if you look like you have a brain, you'll be offered a compensated gig. And I must say, sometimes Bleacher Report, let me not crap on it too bad because I actually have a few friends that happen to be contributors to that website, and they, as well as several other people, there are some really good writers out there that write some really great, fantastic stuff on that site. But unfortunately, we have these freaking knuckleheads that will sit up and they will create these ridiculous-ass stories just to try to make them look popular, just to try to get themselves to trend. It's really one of those type of websites that just really, unfortunately, as much as I like the whole idea of anybody can come on this site and contribute an article and hopefully gain some followers, gain a strong connection in social networking. You know, I like that whole concept, but in a case like this where somebody had made this ridiculous-ass story, it's one of those type of deals where maybe they kind of need to go back and they need to increase the moderation of the type of content that is being put up by some of these guys. And I saw this report, and keep in mind of what I just said not too long ago, how much of a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan I was, and I still am to a certain extent. This is the point where I'm at right now. Stone Cold Steve Austin, I've been a big fan of his way back, WCW, ECW. I love Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't think there's not one man alive out there, one grown-ass man alive out there. If Stone Cold Steve Austin were to die before the age of 60, I can just imagine that grown man sitting up and shedding a tear for the guy because the guy just meant so much to the business. Say what you want. You know, we have some of those people, they don't really like to give Stone Cold his props, but vast majority of the fans that you talk to, they point out how Stone Cold is one of their favorites, one of the best guys to ever lace up a pair of boots, hands down. Keeping all this in mind, there was definitely a long period of time where I just kind of held on for just a little bit of Stone Cold coming back for one more match. But I say to myself, as more and more time goes on, it's just not going to happen. And, I mean, I don't know how many of these people who are sitting up writing these ridiculous reports about Steve Austin having one more match, I am starting to wonder, have these guys actually seen his last match that he had with The Rock? I can't think of the WrestleMania right now, but have they seen it? Because if they saw it, then they definitely would know that Stone Cold, as far as him wrestling again, that's pretty much it. Ain't no way in hell he's going to be coming back. You know? So, you know, I'm sitting up and I'm saying to myself, and it's a stupid, redundant question, rumor that just keeps getting popped up, it seems, every single freaking year. Is Steve Austin going to retire? Is he going to have one more match? Can he still? And Steve Austin, he's been very nice with the press, as that's been pretty much the number one question that's being asked of him is, when is he going to try to come back and do one more match? And Stone Cold says, well, you know, I'm not really sure. I mean, I could definitely do one or two more matches, but money definitely would be a contributing factor. Also, my body, I got to make sure that I can walk away from my match in one piece. I also need the right type of storyline. The stars just all have to be aligned. And my memory is coming back to me now. I believe the last time we saw Steve Austin wrestle, it was at WrestleMania 19. So that's a long-ass time, folks. And we're just now getting ready to hit WrestleMania 30. And Stone Cold Steve Austin, last I checked, the guy is 45, 46 years old. No, correction, 47, because his birthday is the day after mine, because he's a December baby. So, no, he's actually 47 years old. If it hasn't happened by now, what makes you think it's going to happen? It's just mind-boggling how so many freaking people sit up and want to try to make something out of nothing. And it just shows you how tasteless, how classless some writers can be when they're just trying to look for popularity. And I strongly do believe that if there's ever going to be a time where it will be revealed that Steve Austin will, in fact, do one more match, I truly believe that it will be him and Vince McMahon having a WWE press conference to make the announcement. Until then, until you see that happen, folks, don't believe what the dirt sheets put out there. Don't believe all that hearsay. Unless you see Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin have a WWE press conference, consider that to be official. Until then, just pay no attention to all the reports that you're seeing. And that's the bottom line on that. And also, we had saw in other wrestling-related news, we had saw WWE developmental diva Skylar Moon, whose profile was removed from the FCW NXT website, which had created a lot of speculation that maybe she was perhaps released from her contract. Well, she shot down those rumors on Twitter saying, I was not released. My profile is under construction. Here we go again. That's exactly what I'm talking about, folks. It's a bad week for the dirt sheets here. They are just really going all over the place. I don't know what the hell is going on with these guys. Triple H had revealed a very interesting interview that he had did with Yahoo Sports, and he was very candid in this interview as he had talked about Brock Lesnar finally coming back where he feels he belongs in the WWE, and they had talked about how Brock Lesnar, how this new contract that he has, which is estimated to be over $5 million for just 1 year, was definitely very enticing since it would give Lesnar the opportunity to work a very limited schedule. And Triple H, very kind guy. I actually read this, I think, twice. And the way he just came off as he was talking about Lesnar, he wasn't bashing him at all. He pretty much was being upfront and honest about Lesnar, saying Lesnar, he is just a farm boy. There is nothing more that he wants to do than to be able to kick back at home, ride his tractor trailer, and take care of his farm. He is just a major badass when it comes to working on his farm on the weekends. And Triple H was pretty much giving Lesnar his props, saying Lesnar, he's an old school farm boy. He can't really handle a full-time schedule and being on the road rigorously. So, he talked about how it was a smart move that WWE and Lesnar were able to work out a deal for him to come back at the type of schedule that he has right now. And he also had touched upon if there was any animosity between WWE and Lesnar. And, of course, there was, as let's not forget, for those of us hardcore fans that remember, we had saw Brock Lesnar leave off the heels of WrestleMania 20 to go pursue a football career with the Minnesota Vikings, and that didn't quite go out so good. And from there, at that point, he was very content on not wrestling again, but after seeing that he wasn't going to be able to get picked up from another NFL team, he had decided to breach the agreement that he made with WWE, where there was a no compete clause, where he was not allowed to wrestle for another wrestling organization or MMA promotion for a certain amount of time. And he would break that to go do wrestling work in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And for 2 years, Brock Lesnar and WWE, they were in court until a settlement was finally reached that has saw Brock Lesnar be able to pursue a MMA pro wrestling career. And really great piece. I highly recommend that you guys go check it out. We definitely have a snippet of it on our website at infinityOneProductions.com. Do check it out when you get a chance. It's definitely a good read. You won't be disappointed. Trust me on that. That's pretty much it. It's been pretty much a quiet wrestling week so far. Not really too much has been happening on the WWE side of things. We definitely have some TNA news that we want to share with you guys, but we're going to save that for the Thursday night edition of Impact Showdown Radio, which you can hear at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, right after a new episode of TNA Impact Wrestling. You definitely want to check that out. It's going to be another installment of their Open Fight Night edition, so that should be pretty cool right there. All right, well, let's go on ahead right now, and let's open up the phone lines, get you all's reaction to what all has happened during the weekend. Pretty busy weekend. We had SummerSlam, then we followed it up with pretty lackluster Raw, although it had a few hidden gems in it. Let's go ahead and let's open up the phone lines. Feel free to call in right now. Kick back, smile, and dial 646-478-3525. Once again, that's 646-478-3525. Let's go ahead and open up the phone lines right now. Of course, let's go out to the Michigan area, and let's talk to our good friend Dave. Dave, you're live on the air, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good, bro.
I believe that was WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, I had called it at the end. Yeah, 19.
Yeah. That was actually probably one of my favorite WrestleManias.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on Raw and SummerSlam. You didn't mention about how the crowd reaction was just dead, and it was, but for one person. Daniel Bryan. Every time he pops out, that crowd just goes nuts.
Yeah.
I noticed it at SummerSlam. I think that was the biggest pop of SummerSlam. And then
Mm-hmm.
Raw, it definitely was on Raw, and it was like a no-contest match.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty bad when he's not even really one of their top guys, and he's getting the biggest crowd reactions.
Yeah, bigger than the WWE Champion, bigger than John Cena. That says a lot.
And to talk about, I know you're going to mention about the Impact thing, but I did read what you're probably going to touch on about the Claire Lynch thing, which I'm glad about that.
Yeah, you know it.
I was just like, yes, I had to read that.
Yeah.
I'll let you touch on that more Thursday. I want to go into that.
Yeah.
But as far as some of the I thought it was okay. Raw was. It just had one of those kind of like, okay. I mean, and I think the tweet of the night had to be. I don't follow CM Punk, but all his stuff gets retweeted anyway.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, I heard he said I did it for Andy Kaufman. I started busting up laughing.
I thought I had read that from him. I wasn't sure if he was retweeting somebody or if he actually said that. Did he actually say that?
I don't know exact. I see the retweet from Joey Styles, and he says the best tweet ever. Oh my God, the best tweet ever.
Mm.
And I thought that was funny.
Oh my God.
I mean, yeah, that was pretty good, but I'm really scared now. I know I have said that I think Punk will keep the title all the way to the Rumble, but John Cena hasn't lost a pay-per-view one-on-one since he lost to The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Punk's going to win against John Cena, but you can say the same thing for Punk. He hasn't lost either, but I don't know. It kind of worries me a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely very concerned about that. I mean, if that will say a lot. That will speak large volumes to a lot of wrestling fans if CM Punk doesn't get the job done at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. A lot of them could probably look at that as a sign that, well, CM Punk, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. We now know with certainty who WWE has always been behind, and it's obviously been John Cena. So a lot of them will definitely feel alienated. Yeah, and I don't know, if I were to put money on it right now, I mean, it's kind of early because we got to see more storylines develop leading up to the pay-per-view. But, you're kind of led to believe right now that his championship run could be in jeopardy, especially at the way Michael Cole just keeps bringing up how long he's been champion. Yeah. Usually when you keep hearing numbers like that from a wrestler holding a title that long, it usually is a sign that maybe their streak is about to end.
Yeah, that's because he was a big sign of the kiss of death.
Yeah.
And you started talking, you don't talk about a pitcher's perfect game.
Speaking of which, what did you think of that whole Triple H, Brock Lesnar?
About that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm interested. I'm intrigued by the story, which it is looking more and more like it's going to be Brock coming back at Survivor Series. But I think there is so many guys still in the WWE right now that Brock could have a good match with. Like, I know people groan when they hear the name, but just a straight-out brawl, I wouldn't mind seeing Kane and Brock Lesnar. Or even Big Show and Brock Lesnar again. I mean, just some of those matches they could fill him with, but it seems like they're only going to focus like him and Triple H right now. I mean, there's still so many matches out there, and for Triple H's so-called retirement, I mean, that's pretty bogus. I've known him. I knew about the contract thing too. Like, he was at least around for at least 4 years. But he said 6. But I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
And I can see a scenario with Triple H is where Vince McMahon comes out to Triple H and basically says, "We need the old Triple H back. We need that heel. We need the guy who would beat the crap out of everybody with the sledgehammer. We need that guy who beat me up at Armageddon back in whatever that was. I can't remember exactly. But we need maybe have him beat the crap out of Shawn Michaels even to bring back that old Triple H."
No doubt, because you look at that. No doubt, because you look at that Triple H that was in the ring on Sunday, and you compare it to the Triple H that, was so bitter or whatever. He took a freaking sledgehammer to the back of Shawn Michaels, who just came back from out of not wrestling for like 7 years. You're like, man, what a dick. We definitely need to see that Triple H. That Triple H needs to come back.
When you're watching that Brock match, when Triple H swung him into the announce table, were you thinking that he was really hurt?
For a brief second, I did.
I was too. I was like, holy crap, because he kept saying, my stomach, and it was just a look. And they did the smart job on Michael Cole and the King did by saying, well, we all know about all Brock's stomach issues and all that.
Yeah, I love those subtle touches. Yeah, I love those subtle touches. And the other thing I noticed, I don't know if you had picked it up, is especially for you guys out there, I don't know if you all had picked it up, but I had noticed just a few times, it didn't happen quite often, but there was a few times where you could actually hear Triple H telling Brock Lesnar what to do.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, watch the replay. Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. There was at least 5-6 times Triple H was saying something to Brock Lesnar, letting him know what to do next. I know one of the times it had came when I think it was Triple H going off the ropes, and he basically said to him, attack me off the ropes. And the next thing you know, we saw Brock Lesnar attack him. I'm like, okay, Brock, come on now. I know you ain't that rusty.
Yeah. I do have a question for you. I know you didn't really go into it, but I would love to hear what you really thought of that. Me personally, of the Divas match, I thought it was one of the worst battle royals of women wrestling I've ever seen. And just the commentary, I was like, they were just like at least 5 seconds went by when no one was even saying anything.
Wow, man. I was trying to dodge that, but I'll definitely talk about that. Thank you so much, Dave, as always. Honestly, and this is how I honestly feel about that Divas Battle Royal that I had saw. I was not invested into it. I could care less about it. I mean, if you don't have the commentators doing a good job of trying to make you feel invested into it, and you're watching what you're watching in the ring, it's really hard to invest into it, especially when most of them come out and they're having their little 5-minute matches. I mean, honestly, I can't say it enough. And I know me and co-producer Tammy were joking about it on the RCWR post show. We were like, okay, if we're going to have the Night of Champions pay-per-view and supposedly all the belts are going to be on the line, does that mean that the Divas title is going to be on the line too? Or is WWE, Vince McMahon, Triple H, are they going to show that belt the ultimate disrespect and not even acknowledge it on the pay-per-view? And, when we really think about it, let's be brutally honest, the odds of Ezekiel Jackson coming back and having a match on Raw and SmackDown is pretty slim with regards to seeing a Divas Championship match at Night of Champions. So whether we like it or not, we're going to see some Divas at this pay-per-view. But for this Battle Royal match, I just was not invested. I mean, all the Divas that they have, they are coming out to the same stupid little music, the same little stupid techno, girly bubblegum pop music. It just sounds the same. They all look the same. The ones that do know how to wrestle their butts off, they aren't being given that respected push. Natalya Neidhart, Beth Phoenix, hell, I'll even go with Tamina. I mean, Tamina, she's kind of got a little butch side to her, but she can definitely throw it down. So I definitely give her props. I mean, there's only but a handful in there. And my message to WWE right now would be, you know what? You got too many things that you need to be focusing on right now. And, hey, I'm excited for Triple H wanting to breathe new life into the tag team division because he wants it to be significant as it was back in the 80s. I appreciate that. And I'm all for that. As a matter of fact, let's see more of that exposure. Let's see more male tag team action. Let's see people who you would never even imagine team up to be a tag team. And let's see how they click together. You know, the only way these guys are really going to be able to learn from each other is if they're teaming up with one another. And, you know, it's very unfortunate that Vince McMahon had crapped on the whole Legends concept after that poor segment with Roddy Piper, because I'm telling you, I think that could be the key right there to a reignited tag team division. But for right now, I would say focus on the tag team division. Leave the WWE division alone, because honestly, that needs a lot of work. And honestly, if I were one of the main writers, what I would honestly do with that championship belt for the Divas, I would do this battle royal, but I would let it be known that as of Night of Champions, that Divas title will be terminated. That's going to be it. So whoever walks away from Night of Champions still remaining champion, or even if you get a new champion, it don't matter. Night of Champions, that'll be the last time you see the Divas division. That's it. And we can just have all these Divas just branch off and kind of be like valets to some of these wrestlers that could kind of use a little bit of a, not necessarily help, but kind of make them appear more appealing to the crowd. Like, can you just imagine a Natalya Neidhart maybe teaming up with Daniel Bryan, maybe being a valet for him? I mean, just think about the different combinations that we could kind of get. But they definitely need to just go on ahead and get rid of the Divas division. You know, if they aren't going to get rid of it altogether, the least thing they could start doing with these 3-hour blocks of Raw is build more hype into these matches. Give some type of storyline, some type of meat and potatoes that fans, male or females, can invest in to want to say, okay, well, I definitely want to see what's going to happen when these two girls lock it up. All the YouTube shows that they have on a YouTube channel for WWE, and there's not one show just specifically for the Divas where they could possibly work out new storylines. I think that would be a really cool thing to do. I think that's it. That's the bottom line. And that's pretty much going to do it, folks. I think those of you that had called into the show tonight, thank those of you that participated in our chat room. As always, we appreciate the love. Thank those of you that's going to be checking this out on YouTube shortly. And mad shout out to our Stitcher family that continues to grow. We're moving up the ranks there, I see. Let's keep that momentum going. That's going to do it until our Thursday night edition of Impact Showdown Radio at 10 p.m. Eastern. Do check that out, and don't forget the Rcwr Show Weekend Edition makes his long-anticipated return this Saturday at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We're going to look more into Brock Lesnar and an in-depth look where I'm going to give some ideas on who the next opponent should be that he faces leading up into WrestleMania. You're definitely going to like that. And it's the return of Hidden Gems. Going to pick a favorite DVD, CD for you guys to check out. Also have a review for Fozzie's new album. Till we hear from you guys this Thursday night for Impact Showdown Radio, I'm the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders. You all be safe and be kind to one another. Take care, folks. See you next time.